Welcome to Switzerland. Did you know that our country is not just a great place to visit, but also your first-class business location? We are centrally located in Europe and we have the world's best infrastructure. Oh, and the train is always on time, so let's take a journey. Did you know that Switzerland has 4 official languages? Ja? No? Forse? Decidia? Don't worry, we also have excellent English skills. However, we don't spend all day chatting. We love to work. In 2012, we could have voted for longer holidays, and we voted against them. It's crazy, isn't it? But we're not crazy. Our economy and government are among the world's most stable. That, combined with our outstanding talent pool and a deregulated labor market, makes Switzerland the most innovative and competitive nation in the world. Our Swiss dual education system provides an excellent mix of both vocational education and apprenticeships. Now let's take a look at industry. Maybe Germany, the United States, and China are well known for their industrial output. But did you know that Swiss industrial production per capita beats all of them? Sorry, guys. Our country is small, but hey, 3 Swiss companies are among the global top 20 most valuable companies. Furthermore, we offer the best quality of life. That's why 3 Swiss cities are among the world's best for the highest quality of living. In addition, Switzerland is one of the happiest nations on the globe. Perhaps because we eat on average 12 kilograms of chocolate per year? Switzerland is the best location for innovation, has stable political, economic, and financial conditions, has the highest living standard, and welcomes your business. So tell us now, when will you invest in Switzerland? Switzerland Global Enterprise, enabling new business. Find out more at s-ge.com.
Karnataka has the right ingredients of all that it takes to build a very advanced biotech ecosystem.
Any road that leads out of Bangalore, or for that matter into Bangalore, is actually, there is a biotechnology hub.
The ecosystem in Karnataka, especially in Bangalore, is very, very industry friendly. For biotechnology, we have high-class research institutes, whether it is the Indian Institute of Science, or whether it is the NCBS, or is the Agriculture Sciences University, or the IBAB.
The Bangalore Life Sciences Cluster is present at the University of Agricultural Sciences campus, and it's primarily made up of three institutions: the National Center for Biological Sciences, the Institute for Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine, and the Center for Cellular and Molecular Platforms called CCAP. Together, they become an outstanding intellectual hub.
The uniqueness of the Bangalore Helix is the presence of academic institutions like IBAB, Center for Human Genetics, as well as the Bangalore Innovation Center.
IBAB is a first of its kind institute involved in training and combined with biotech students in cutting edge areas of bioinformatics, and it is involved in incubating young companies and helping entrepreneurs in these areas.
The breadth and the depth of the skill base that is available here. I don't think there is any other city in India which has systematically, over the past 30 years, built up such a broad base of people who, in all areas of biotechnology.
So whether it is molecular and cellular biology, whether it is genetics and genomics, whether it is high-end IT and big data analytics, or whether it is high-end engineering and bioprocessing and biomanufacturing, Karnataka has it all.
The Karnataka Biofuel Program is very unique. It empowers the rural community. It strengthens the agricultural activity in the rural areas. It generates a whole lot of employment through value addition activities in the rural areas.
One of the benefits of our Strand virtual liver based approach to studying toxicity is that it actually minimizes or even eliminates in some cases the use of animal models, and therefore in where you do not want to have animal testing and yet want to understand the toxicity of molecules. This is perhaps one of the few options available.
The Center for Human Genetics is trying to fill this niche area, which is a highly demanding area, because under one institutional framework you need to have both medical specialists as well as basic scientists working together and complementing each other's skills.
We have got lots of scientists and doctors who are able to provide high-class care for these patients who have got extremely rare disorders. This has been possible because of our partnership with the biotech industry, which has helped us in providing enzyme replacement therapy to the patients and also the special foods that some of these rare disorders require.
The cancer care has undergone a radical change in the last 5 years. From evidence-based medicine, we have come to personalized medicine. And this has happened mainly because of better understanding of the disease, better understanding of the gene makeup, and better therapy on an individual base suited to that based on their genetic expression and the biomarker expression. So this will revolutionize cancer care, and we in India, particularly in Bangalore being the hub, can truly become leaders, global leaders in the genomic therapy of oncology.
Karnataka has supported us in this journey for the past 30 years by providing us the conducive climate to do business here in India, and we have succeeded.
The kind of work that we do involves a lot of collaboration. And in Bangalore, we have found really the kind of collaborations, whether it's with big companies or smaller companies, who which really are very relevant for our kind of work.
The strengths which IBAB gave us was the laboratory space, necessary infrastructure needed for a startup biotechnology company, and actually mentorship, which is more needed in this field.
IBAB offers also several other benefits like a wealth of very talented young people that we can choose from, interns, and also great infrastructure that the institute provides.
String is an early stage startup. We are developing an innovative solution to take waste, organic waste particularly, to biodegradable plastics. We've really built the team and the product at a remarkable speed over the last year, and the intellectual environment that Bangalore provides for a startup such as ours.
There are more and more entrepreneurs coming, and as the ecosystem grows with all the components already in place, any entrepreneur today finds it very easy to come and set up his operations here, and there is mentorship available, other business-friendly policies, the ambience is there, and so I see a very bright future for Karnataka's biotechnology industry.
The government of Karnataka decided to set up an autonomous vision group for biotechnology, which was an optimal blend of academia, industry and the government. The harmony and the alignment that these three groups of people have had at this vision group has really enabled us to come out with some of the most pragmatic policies in biotechnology, the required investments in biotechnology from the government, which has really allowed us to take a unstinted leadership position.
The state has come out with always business-friendly policies, and in and around Bangalore there are a number of higher education institutions which provide the talent pool for such industries or enterprises.
Investing in quality foundations in science and technology is vital so that you're prepared for whatever change the world brings about, and so you can grab that change and do well.
There's a very, very unique ecosystem in this part of the world, and great things are expected to happen, and all this has been made possible solely because of the proactive role that Karnataka government has played.
It really doesn't matter which area of biotechnology you're working on. I think this is the best place to be.
Ideas need entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs need startups. And startups? Startups need a robust ecosystem to emerge as an unicorn. This ecosystem is what makes Karnataka the innovation and technology hub of India. Government of Karnataka supports startups right from offering physical space to setting up of incubation in partnership with NASSCOM, IAMAI bodies with state-of-the-art facilities, amenities and support services. Mentorship by industry leaders and domain experts to advanced tools for testing, instrumentation, industry connects, investor connects and global connects. Filing patents and protecting ideas to providing mentoring support and brand development assistance. The government of Karnataka has come in to assist budding companies through every hurdle and provide all kinds of resources across all its physical infrastructure. With dedicated facilities and state-of-the-art infrastructure all under one roof, exclusively for IT and BT startups. But only physical space is not enough to house 8,000 startups. Karnataka is also the first state in India to come up with sector-specific policies and adapt a framework for innovation engagements at a global level with countries from around the world to assist solve a collective need for nations world over. A space where this all comes together is the Bengaluru Tech Summit, a conference that brings together innovators, startups, investors, government, policy makers, academia to foster collaborations, co-creation, co-innovation and co-invention. Some of the largest companies in the world have set up their own incubation centers in the city of Bengaluru. Not only is Bengaluru one of the easiest places to find skilled team members for a startup, it is deemed as the startup capital of India with more new startups incubated here than anywhere else in the country. To give a thrust to the emerging sectors and sunshine technologies, the state government, through a joint initiative with corporates and MITI, has established multiple centers of excellence to boost the accelerator support to the entire startup ecosystem. In addition to the COEs, the government of Karnataka is supporting establishment of 5 technology business incubators in institutions of higher learning with well-developed R&D facilities to foster a strong link between R&D and commercialization of technologies developed. And the city is home to 14 of India's 33 unicorns and 20 soonicorns, which is highest in the country. Bengaluru leads in the startup race when it comes to the number of funding deals, with Bengaluru-based companies having raised $2,436 million in the first half of 2020. The drive to grow and innovate is not restricted to Bengaluru alone. It goes beyond Bengaluru to meet this growing entrepreneurial spirit in the state and to nurture innovation at district level. The government of Karnataka has set up New Age Innovation Networks, NAIN, in the emerging clusters. NAIN envisages and encourages student entrepreneurship at a grassroots level, while also setting up R&D labs and common instrumentation facilities in cities across the state, including Mysuru, Hubballi, Dharwad, Belagavi and Bagalkote. Additionally, the state has set up 5 common prototyping or instrumentation facilities in Jalhalli, Mysuru, Mangaluru, Shivamogga and Belagavi, fueling the startup ecosystem through innovation hubs in Tier 2 cities, thus empowering hardware startups across the state. The government of Karnataka is the only state supporting early stage startups by Idea to POC or Elevate Grant in Aid to identify innovative startups across the state and elevate them to the next level. Elevate Unnati is an Idea to POC Grant in Aid for startups promoted exclusively by SC/ST entrepreneurs of the state. For social innovation, Karnataka uses a model of grand challenges to focus attention and effort on specific problems. The government has tied up with Catalyst for Women Entrepreneurship for promoting entrepreneurship among women. Kitwin Fund focused on encouraging entrepreneurship in the state, promising startups in need more than capital or financial backing to succeed. The government also incentivizes startups through reimbursement of GST, marketing incentives, patent filing costs, and provides booster kit in form of web credits. Between the schemes, policies, partnerships and alliances, Karnataka is geared to grow faster than ever. The state is also ready to establish an AI and robotics technology park and creating a digital economy mission to leverage the 500 plus R&D centers to retain Karnataka's position as a leader in innovation-led economic growth. The state also launches a first-of-its-kind sector-agnostic regulatory sandbox for promoting upcoming technologies. The government of Karnataka is also planning a new and renewed startup policy in 2021 that will establish Karnataka as a power player in India's growth as a global innovation leader. After all, startups without an ecosystem are just entrepreneurs with ideas. And our startups are fully backed by the government ecosystem that fuel the innovative spirits of the entrepreneurs and risk appetite angel investors and VCs.
Odisha is taking many initiatives for industrial growth in the state and has turned out to be a preferred investment destination in the country. The major investors in the state are NTPC, MCL, SAIL, Tata Steel, TCS, Adani, JSPL, PPL, IOCL and many more. More than 300 companies have invested and the state has received investment worth more than 5 lakh crore. Major investment sectors are IT, fertilizer, petrochemicals, food processing, health, infrastructure, ESDM, metal and minerals, manufacturing, textile and tourism. We are aware that Indian biotech industry is likely to experience significant growth on the back of increasing economic prosperity, health consciousness and billion plus population base. Odisha is now single-mindedly focused on building a successful startup ecosystem to facilitate the biotech industry. The State Industrial Policy Regulation 2015, IPR 2015, recognizes biotech sector as a priority sector and extends all the fiscal incentives, special incentives and other support measures to the biotechnology sector. In such cases, the industrial unit can choose to avail a particular incentive under this policy or the sectoral policy like agriculture policy, food processing policy, MSME policy, startup policy, SEJ policy, etc. Odisha has also come out with a biotech policy in 2018 which assures incentives at par with IPR 2015 and also supports biotech R&D ecosystems through supporting biotech incubation centers of excellence and also by supporting early stage funding like immersion fellowship and bio-innovation grants. The state has set up Industry Infrastructure Development Fund with an initial corpus of 100 crore. The IIFDF will be utilized for development of quality infrastructure such as roads, power, water, waste management, etc. Government of Odisha has partnered with Bharat Biotech to establish a biotechnology park at Bhubaneswar. An incubation center has also come up at ILS Bhubaneswar with the support of Government of Odisha as well as Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. Odisha possesses a unique model of connecting academics, industries, R&D institutions and startups. At the same time, the unique bioresource in the field of agriculture and biomaterials in Odisha, particularly in the tribal areas as well as large marine and coastal region of the state, also will enable value addition and product development through biotechnology applications. Odisha, with its bio resources, and Bhubaneswar as state capital with large number of scientific institutions will enable academician collaborations with potential industries and will engage the trained human resources for the purpose. I hope with cooperation from potential investors, Odisha will definitely develop into a preferred investment destination in the biotech sector and contribute to better lives and livelihoods. Thanks you all.
In healthcare, a vast ecosystem is helping therapy innovators become more patient-centric and more effective than ever before. Cytiva supports researchers, biopharma, and clinicians in the pursuit of more targeted treatments. In discovery, speed and accuracy are everything. The faster and smarter researchers can work, the more patients benefit. To ensure that new, more targeted therapies become reality, we're equipping biomanufacturers with the tools and expertise they need to produce cost-effectively and quickly. How can tens of thousands of individualized patient doses be manufactured quickly, efficiently, and securely? The answer, with a healthy dose of expertise and innovation. We're creating processes and solutions that are scalable and address complex needs. We work to deliver diagnostic tools and other technologies to bring the right therapy to the right patient at the right time, so that life-saving medicines come within the reach of more people and could save more lives. Cell culture, protein purification, biomarker imaging, and analysis. It may not be what most think about when envisioning the future of healthcare, but this is what we do. Our part in changing the world. Advancing and accelerating. Discovery, manufacturing, diagnostics, future therapeutics.
to regulatory compliance is long and filled with choices. With a combination of standards, process, and service, USP can help guide your path to compliant, quality products. Trust the standard that sets the benchmark for medicines. Our robust and collaborative scientific process is part of our comprehensive approach. We offer reference standards that are tied to USP monographs to help you minimize risk and enhance your confidence in compliance. Reduce time and resources spent developing in-house standards and streamline your path to regulatory compliance. We work with independent, volunteer scientific experts who rigorously review and approve our standards, which undergo testing by USP and other laboratories around the world. Ongoing testing of our standards helps ensure the quality of your product over time, and only USP reference standards are linked to official USP NF monographs that provide specifications for the identity, purity, and potency to meet FDA requirements without further in-house qualification and the needs of our global customers. With USP, you have access to our in-house scientific experts to guide you every step of the way. In addition to our best-in-class USP reference standards, we offer training, education, and other services. Our online resources help smooth your path to regulatory compliance. Our standards provide precise testing and validation guidelines, as well as reference samples for testing. Drugs can be made consistently every time. We are more than reference standards. We provide a unique combination of standards, process, and service. From buying to applying standards, we support your bottom line with reference standards that have been rated best in class by our customers. Talk with us to find out how we can help you navigate your journey to regulatory compliance. Contact USP at usp.org.
Welcome to Switzerland. Did you know that our country is not just a great place to visit, but also your first-class business location? We are centrally located in Europe, and we have the world's best infrastructure. Oh, and the train is always on time, so let's take a journey. Did you know that Switzerland has 4 official languages? Ja? No? Forse? Decidia? Don't worry, we also have excellent English skills. However, we don't spend all day chatting. We love to work. In 2012, we could have voted for longer holidays, and we voted against them. It's crazy, isn't it? But we're not crazy. Our economy and government are among the world's most stable. That, combined with our outstanding talent pool and a deregulated labor market, makes Switzerland the most innovative and competitive nation in the world. Our Swiss dual education system provides an excellent mix of both vocational education and apprenticeships. Now let's take a look at industry. Maybe Germany, the United States, and China are well known for their industrial output. But did you know that Swiss industrial production per capita beats all of them? Sorry, guys. Our country is small, but hey, 3 Swiss companies are among the global top 20 most valuable companies. Furthermore, we offer the best quality of life. That's why 3 Swiss cities are among the world's best for the highest quality of living. In addition, Switzerland is one of the happiest nations on the globe. Perhaps because we eat on average 12 kilograms of chocolate per year? Switzerland is the best location for innovation, has stable political, economic, and financial conditions, has the highest living standard, and welcomes your business. So tell us now, when will you invest in Switzerland? Switzerland Global Enterprise, enabling new business. Find out more at s-ge.com.
Karnataka has the right ingredients of all that it takes to build a very advanced biotech ecosystem.
Any road that leads out of Bangalore, or for that matter into Bangalore, is actually, there is a biotech.
of vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine journey from science to delivery. And we have a very eminent panel today to discuss this journey together, from really lab to scale up to industry and then to the market. So we will be talking about the science behind it and then how it moved, the science moved to the lab, to the industry and to the market. Without much ado, I will request the moderator of the session, Dr. Kavita Singh, to take over the moderation and take this discussion forward. Over to you, Dr. Kavita.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Madhvi and Sishindu. Once again, a very warm welcome to our esteemed panel, a really esteemed one. We're so proud of all of you today. And of course, to the audience of this session. India, since the inauguration, and of course, in so many weeks, we've been hearing something which is really resonating very clearly globally, that India, the vaccine powerhouse, the vaccine capital, is a home to about a dozen manufacturers and quite a few young evolving names too, which again, we are very proud of. And in the past, thanks to all these vaccine manufacturers, India has received acknowledgement from practically all quarters. The Director General WHO has praised Prime Minister Modi's commitment for supporting vaccine equity, and they say it's about more than 60 countries across the world where the vaccines are going to be shared with. The CEO of Gavi Alliance, Mr. Bill Gates, have often commended India's leadership, partnership and commitment for equitable vaccine distribution. Therefore, it is extremely founded that we take this opportunity to congratulate, applaud and acknowledge the hard work put in by our Indian vaccine manufacturers. I think we should also take this opportunity to collaborate, to recognize the collaboration, partnerships, and support provided by the ecosystem through DBT institutes, ICMR, labs like Irsha. And therefore, this session is such an important, pertinent session. You can realize this right on the first day immediately after the inauguration of Global Bio, the COVID-19 vaccine journey from science to delivery. While we start the session, I would also encourage our viewers to utilize chat and please post your queries, which we can put to our speakers post the session. As a first, I think it's a real matter of pride to first invite Dr. Jadhav and to hear from him the serum's magnanimous, huge manufacturing capacity. I was hearing some session, a few days back that about 5,000 doses per minute of Covishield is what Serum is churning out. So Dr. Jadhav, over to you to hear more about you from Serum's partnerships, the strategy, and of course, I believe you have a nice whole portfolio, a pipeline also, if you would like to share with us. Over to you, Dr. Jadhav. Dr. Jadhav, can I request you to unmute, please? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so I said, thank you, Dr. Kavita. And it's really a pleasure to be part of the Global Bio India 21, especially during the session on the COVID-19 vaccine journey from science to delivery. I think it was no wonder that everybody was looking at India because of the track record of the vaccine manufacturers and our capability of supplying almost about, I think, more than 2 billion doses globally every year, especially for the API vaccines. And that too almost about more than 170 countries, covering 70% infant population, which is born in the world every year. So I think when the COVID was visible, I think in the late December or November, December 19, everybody was also thinking that maybe India's vaccine manufacturers will play a very big role. And I still remember, I think that time there was a statement which was made by Mr. Bill Gates that India's willingness to play a big role in manufacturing COVID-19 vaccine and allow it to supply to other developing countries will be a critical part of containing the pandemic globally. So that's the testimony of the confidence that the other world leaders that had in the vaccine manufacturers of India. I think, therefore, all Indian manufacturers who started working or thinking about COVID right in the beginning. And what has happened in the last about 20 years, that many new technologies have been developed for making vaccines. But none of those technologies could be really translated to see whether they could be used for the existing vaccine. Because if you are to use a new technology, then you have to do a efficacy trial which costs hundreds and $200-300 millions of dollars. And no vaccine manufacturer was ready to invest that kind of money in a vaccine which is existing and working very good. And when the COVID came, I think people started working on different platforms. In the sense, the wholesale inactivated virus vaccine, the live attenuated viruses, the protein subunit vaccine, virus-like particles, viral vectors, both the chimpanzee as well as the human, the DNA vaccines, the RNA vaccines, and also the antigen presenting cells technology. You will be surprised to know that I think till yesterday, there are almost about 365 different companies and laboratories are working to develop COVID vaccine. Out of that, as we know, as on today, almost 10 vaccines are already so-called licensed for the emergency use. And a couple of them have been actually licensed for the full use. I think the Indian manufacturers were certainly not behind, and they started working on this, where I think almost all the vaccine manufacturers like Serum Institute, Bharat Biotech, Cadila, Biologically, Panacea, Indian Immunologicals, Mindvax, Aurobindo Pharma, Genova, and lately Dr. Reddy's, along with their collaborators from the Russia Sputnik vaccine, also started working on it. Today, we are aware that 2 vaccines are already got the emergency use license in India, but on R&D scale, there were really great challenges to start with, because when the company thinks about starting a new product, they have to really identify the right platform technology, whether there are proper analytical methods which are developed and validated are available or not, selection of the right animal models and the early proof of concept in preclinical studies, iteration in process development and validations, clinical trial design, identifying right clinical sites and recruitments, clinical endpoint, determination with asymptomatic SARS-CoV infection, inclusion of optimal representative population, and availability of the safety data, especially with respect to the novel vaccine technologies. Because here, you wanted to develop a vaccine in the shortest possible time, because this particular virus has affected the total globe. That means the total 7.8 billion population was affected. And if you want to make a vaccine and make it available to everybody, it was really a huge challenge, and effort by several manufacturers was required to do that. But before you do that, and they were the R&D sort of pangs what I have talked about. But when you talk about the scale-ups, then you have to think about so many other things. Number one, the infrastructure, whether you have got ready-made infrastructure to start your work, whether that infrastructure can comply with the GMP requirements, then it has got all the qualifications, whether you require any automation. In the equipment side, whether the proper design of equipment as per the product requirement, alignment of processing units to handle the large volumes, qualification of those equipments, and finally, availability of the critical raw materials. Because this was the COVID time. The transportation has almost come to a standstill. So getting anything from outside was a really huge challenge. And also to ensure the regular supply of consumables, because unfortunately, these are 2 areas, that is the basic availability of the media and some of the chemicals, and the regular supply of consumables. We still depend more than 90% on our suppliers from the West. And that is something which we had to take into account when we decided about going into the production and scaling of the projects. And finally, of course, the skilled manpower. We require people who were trained and skilled and with proper GMP training. And without that, nothing was possible. And I think Indian manufacturers have overcome all these difficulties. Today, I can just talk about Serum Institute. At this moment, we have made more than 145 million doses. Almost 111 million are cleared from the Kasoli, the National Control Laboratory. We have supplied almost about, I think, 45 million doses to Government of India. We have exported almost about 65 million doses outside, out of which I think 6.8 million were used by government to give as a gift to neighboring nations against their vaccine diplomacy. And we are quite confident that with our existing facility, where we are making almost about 50 to 60 million doses now, the capacity which is going to go up to almost about 100 million doses per month from April onwards. And I am quite confident that not only the requirements of Government of India, but also the COVAX facility to which we are already contracted, we will be able to supply sufficient amount of product to them. The good news is that even the developing countries or so-called developed countries are also now contacting us for the supply of vaccine, because most of the major suppliers, they have very limited supply and production capabilities. And one thing I think I would like to make a special mention, that on Friday, United States has sanctioned almost about $1.9 trillion. And in India, we have sanctioned only $35,000. And then we are still haggling with the manufacturers to lower the price. I think this is not the state of affair or the time to haggle for the price. It is the availability of the product and the capability of the people to use it. When you are affected by COVID, you are ready to get yourself tested by paying 4,000 rupees for a test. But here, when you are required to pay maybe 250, 300 rupees, government is little cagey on that affair. I think this is something which needs to be looked into, and I hope that a proper solution will come for this. Thank you.
Sure, Dr. Jadhav. In fact, the same message was also passed on in the previous session when the Minister, Finance Minister and Health Minister were there, even by Dr. Kiran Majumdar. So, but hats off to the 145 million number produced by Serum. And I think each member of the Serum Institute should be congratulated and appreciated for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I would certainly like to now pull in Dr. Krishna Mohan. I'm sure it's a very proud day for Bharat Biotech, as we saw in the morning, early morning when we get up the first pictures we saw today is the Prime Minister getting immunized with Covaxin at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So Dr. Krishna Mohan, on behalf of Bharat Biotech, if you could share with us the journey of this totally indigenous vaccine developed in collaboration with ICMR. How have your past helped you to really accelerate this whole development process within the country? Over to you, Dr. Krishna Mohan. Dr. Krishna Mohan, we're not able to hear you. If you could just check your audio. No. Is anybody else able to, Shindu?
No, ma'am. Able to hear him.
No, he's not audible, ma'am.
Okay, so Dr. Krishna Mohan, do you want to just log back again in the meantime? I'll just go ahead. Can we expect you to come back and we'll check your audio at that time? We'll continue with the session and we'll wait for Dr. Krishna Mohan, because it's very important to hear the story of Bharat Biotech, a very tested, time-tested platform, a safe platform for which we have number of vaccines already available. So while our sincere appreciation for both these vaccines for giving us these really impressive figures, but we also know there are a lot of other vaccine manufacturers who will soon be joining forces by making their candidates available as vaccines both for India and abroad. And another platform which is also very novel, which is totally a novel platform, a DNA vaccine candidate, which is being developed by Zydus Cadila. And Dr. Pankaj, you would really want to understand the boldness of your company's decision to take a totally different strategy, a novel platform, and that too completely indigenous. So Dr. Pankaj, over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita, and I will just share my presentation.
Sure.
So I hope you able to see my presentation now.
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I would like to share, I believe that India has the great capability in doing research and developing novel vaccine. And that's the way our approach has been as an organization. We believe that the future success of pharma industry would lie on the innovative capability of Indian manufacturers. So I think we already have an experience of working on various vaccines. And over a period, we have developed 12 plus vaccine in our portfolio, and we have 5 facilities and 3 R&D centers in India to do this, and about 300 research scientists fully working in it, working for the research. And we have centers in Ahmedabad and also in Catania in Italy to develop the vaccines. So I will not get into the details of the vaccines which we already have either manufactured and supplied or have marketing authorization now. But I think what is important for us that we develop platform technologies to develop different kind of platform for vaccines. So we have live attenuated vaccines, inactivated vaccines, we have subunit vaccines, and we also have some, of course, inactivated toxin vaccines. I think what is important from our point of view, when H1N1 vaccine was required, we were the first company in India to launch the H1N1 vaccine. And also we now have a tetravalent seasonal flu vaccine in India. We are the only manufacturer in India today, and I think very few in the world. We also are the second player of the fully indigenously developed typhoid conjugated vaccine. We have a WHO pre-qualified rabies vaccine. We have approval for MMR and MR vaccine. We have the Indian company also who has now completed phase 1 trial for MMRV vaccine. And we also have developed a fully indigenized the varicella vaccine in India. So I think we have some experience, and based on that, when the COVID thing hurt, we decided and discussed and found out what technology platform we could use it. And at that time, we selected 2 different platforms to work on. The first was a DNA vaccine platform. Now, in past, DNA has been proven to be safe. There were data available for more than 30,000, 35,000 people were given this vaccine, and was found that there were no side effects or adverse event were seen with that vaccine. And then, of course, measles vaccine, we all know that has been working for a very long time. Well, almost 2 billion children over the 40 years. My colleague from Serum has been supplying the measles vaccine globally. And I think there also, we saw that that's one of the things which is good. And we should think about using that platform to create a vector-based vaccine for the coronavirus. And that, as a result, we developed these 2 platforms. The Indian team focused on developing the DNA vaccine, and the Italian team focused on working a measles vector vaccine. So when we look at our vaccine, we realize why we selected DNA was basically because it's possible to give higher dose with DNA vaccine. It is also possible to give booster dose if required in future. It has a better safety profile, particularly in elderly. There is no adjuvant required, so adjuvant related side effects and problems can be not there. And of course, there is no cold chain requirement as generally would require with vaccine. So we saw that there's a lot of advantage of using this platform, and as a result, we selected this platform and worked on it to develop the DNA vaccine. Now, today, we started the journey in February. Today, we are in the phase 3 clinical trial. We started in January, and we expect the results to be out in Q2 2021, when, based on the results, we should get the emergency authorization, and vaccine should be available for people. We also set up a huge facility now for manufacture of vaccines, and for 2020-21, we can supply about 100 to 150 million vaccine, and next year we can go up to 300 million vaccines. I think what is important that our vaccine is found stable at 25 degrees centigrade for about 2 months, and as a result, cold stage continuity may not be a major challenge, and it can be easily transported and also moved into the wider part of India and going. So no specific instruction would be required as otherwise required for most of the vaccines. We are also looking at partnering with other manufacturers to expand the capacity further. So I think basically we have developed basically a safe and highly immunogenic vaccine based on DNA platform. We developed this in a 6 months period and then went into the did safety in human and animal. We done the found the vaccine to be immunogenic and also very safe. We did not find any serious adverse event at all. The vaccine was found stable at 2 to 8 degree, but also stable for at least 2 months at 25 degree. We have also now doing a phase 3 trial in 28,000 subjects, and that would give us sufficient data to be comparable to the global players. And of course, as I said, we will be producing vaccine. We went into the measles vector because I think measles is known to be used by us for a very, very long time. It is an efficacious thing. And basically, based on the recombinant strain, we have developed this live attenuated measles virus-based COVID vaccine. And this is basically, we can do it in the dedicated production line of measles vaccine in our factory. And I think what you see is that some of the data, which is already now with us, are showing a good IgG and neutralizing antibody response with the measles vector vaccine. So to end, I would just say that we are very proud of our scientists. They have done tremendous effort overnight, working day and night in difficult times to actually develop a fully indigenous vaccine. And I think that should give a confidence to the whole nation and the whole pharma industry and vaccine industry that yes, we are moving into next journey of our existence of becoming a really innovation-driven industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Very well said that Indian innovation, we moving, I don't know if you heard Junaid from World Bank in the previous session. He said, local is going global. Indian indigenous products are certainly finding their way into the market globally. Dr. Pankaj, while you are there, we also been hearing that you have in fact already started getting a lot of global requests. So what is your strategy on scale up and further enhancing the manufacturing capacity for this DNA vaccine candidate, which is in the phase 3 now?
So I think what we are doing is we're discussing with several international players to basically manufacture vaccine under our technology transfer to do it. And we also are discussing with a few Indian manufacturers also to discuss that. Based on the outcome, we will transfer the technology to produce vaccine both for international market, in different markets and also in India. Currently, our facilities would get up to 300 million doses, but beyond that, we would basically depend on contract manufacturers or basically a licensed manufacturer to supply the vaccine. Our goal is to make it available to as many as possible, and I think that would be the right approach according to us.
We wish you all the best, Dr. Pankaj, while we await the data of those 28,000 subject study, which has already been initiated a few months back. I do see Dr. Krishna Mohan. I hope your audio is good.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I started off actually thanking Dr. Suresh Yadav because I think he gave a good introduction to the whole vaccine scenario, both in India and globally. I think that's a very good perspective for us to have. I'll restrict myself to what's happening in Bharat Biotech, because I think it's important that we speak more about what we are doing rather than comment on the global scenario. I have a few slides. I don't know whether I can, I'll try sharing. If it doesn't work, I'll stick to the just talking about it. Can I share the content?
Sure, you would have the rights, Dr. Krishna Mohan, if you could just check out the share of
I did share. Can you?
Below.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
You can see that?
We can. If you can put it on slideshow, it will be just excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So essentially, as a company, I just want to let you know that we have a range of vaccines. We have been not kind of focusing on one or two, but we have a range of vaccines, of which 3 are currently WHO pre-qualified. What we are quite proud of is especially the rotavirus vaccine, because we have several patents on that, and we have one of the world's best product compared to even what is generally manufactured by the other 2 multinational companies. We also are proud to have the world's first typhoid conjugate vaccine. And of course, we have a whole range of vaccines. What we are strong at is international collaborations, especially we have benefited significantly by the partnership we had with Oxford University, University of Maryland, with good support from both the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As far as the Covaxin is concerned, we have gone through the whole works. I wouldn't go into each of these steps. It's really not so critical. But what's very important in the case of Covaxin, I just want to let you know that today we have completed the phase 1. We have completed the phase 2. We use, in India, we are the only ones who have a BSL-3 construction facility fully up and running. And it took a couple of years for us to do this, because personally, I had to do a lot of learning to make sure we learn this at a moderate cost, not get too expensive in our manufacturing. And we're quite proud that we have built a production facility. It's not a lab, it's a production facility where both the production as well as the quality control are done in the same BSL-3 environment. In fact, this is the advantage that we have compared to several other multinational manufacturers who have been authorized to and got their emergency authorization, is we do not do the pseudovirion neutralization titers, but we are the only ones who do on a daily basis our virus titers using a live virus of SARS-CoV-2, because half of the production facility is actually quality control. And as far as the journey is concerned, we got the strain in May, and as we speak in Feb, we have supplied several tens of lakhs of doses to the government of India. And what's very important, not so much the number of doses that we manufacture, which is increasing day by day, but what we are particularly proud of is the fact that we have 6 international publications, all in very, very reputed journals. This shows that you can do good science even if you are in an industry environment. And these publications are either in Nature Communications or in Lancet ID or in Cell Press. Of course, I need to acknowledge that we have immensely benefited, and we cherish the partnership we have with the Indian Council of Medical Research. But for the partnership, we could have never ever done a challenge model either in hamsters or monkeys, because most of us are used to doing routine potency studies and tox studies in mice or rabbits or rats or even hamsters, but we could not do any challenge studies. This is the first time we could do and prove that our vaccine works extremely efficiently in terms of the challenge studies we did and the clearance of the virus when you did a challenge post vaccination. So that's something we are extremely happy about. And we have completed our phase 3 trial in terms of vaccinating about 26,000 subjects. Second dose has been given to all the subjects. We have completed the 14-day post-second dose period too. And currently we are in a case count situation where we're getting ready for an interim analysis. So it's been a very difficult journey, but very pleasing to note the end result, because what we are quite pleased is that we have a whole virion vaccine, and we have just published, this is work which was done in ICMR recently, against the UK variant, and it shows that we have a very strong neutralization titers even with the UK variant. So the fact that you have a whole virion is actually showing up here in terms of our titers which are coming out, because whether it is the spike protein or the RBD or the N, all three being present in the Covaxin are really making a difference, is what we feel, because now in the next couple of weeks we will also be announcing our results, which we have with both the South African and the Brazilian strains. We are trying to get these done in different parts of the world just to make sure that we have validated data, not just being done only in Bharat Biotech. So in terms of science, we are quite pleased. In terms of the rollout of the vaccine, today we have this vaccine is being used in India in about more than 20 states, and the vaccine usage is growing. And we have a couple of places, countries where we have exported. So all in all, it's been a very encouraging journey. We have two other vaccine candidates I need to talk about. One is a rabies vector-based vaccine, which is being funded by the National Biopharma Mission, and we are quite pleased to it. And we are not hoping, everything looks good, except that we need to get a few clearances done. And certainly we will be carrying out this clinic. We'll start the clinical trial sometime in April without fail. If everything goes as planned, we have the drug substance, we have the adjuvant, which we have to work on to find a new kind of adjuvant. And we have also the manner in which we want to go ahead with this whole project. So all issues are sorted out. This application is going to be submitted to DCGI sometime soon in the next couple of weeks. What's more important is also the work we have planned on a CoroFlu, which is with the University of Wisconsin, based on a flu-gen kind candidate. Of course, I'm not going to spend much time on that. That's slightly one step behind. But what's very important is that we can announce that we are almost in the clinic with the intranasal vaccine. This will be one of the first intranasal vaccines getting into a human trial. This trial will soon start when everything is organized. And what's very important is that it's just a couple of drops in each nostril, no injections, no syringes, no needles. And it's also very large scale. And the basic data in all the animal challenge models has been extremely encouraging in terms of the viral clearance. We think that we have a sterilizing immunity. So this is one product which we are quite pleased with. Next 2 months will tell how successful we are with the intranasal vaccine, although people do have some reservations about how strong will be the immune response, but we think we should have a good candidate on hands. So we will be working on all the three vaccine candidates. Covaxin, which is already in the kind of field. We have the 154, the intranasal vaccine, which is just getting into clinic, and followed by the rabies vector vaccine. The advantage, which I forgot to mention about the rabies vector vaccine, which we have actually proved by experiments in animal models, it not only helps you with the COVID, it also gives you enough antibody titers to protect you against rabies in case there is a dog bite. So it's a kind of a dual purpose vaccine. The hamster challenge, which we have done abroad, we couldn't do it in India, has been extremely encouraging. And the data so far looks quite promising that it will certainly have a high efficacy in humans, is what we believe. So these are a couple of more slides in terms of how the intranasal vaccine is being developed. That's all I have to make in terms of the presentation. I can go back to answering any questions in case you have.
Sure, Dr. Krishnamohan. I would certainly request you to please stay on in the panel because we are hoping to get the questions in the end. So a request to please stay back. And this, of course, the nasal flu vaccine, the nasal vaccine is everybody's wish list, and we wish you all the success for that. We'll keep our fingers crossed to see the phase 1 results as soon as they're available.
Right.
As we have another very enterprising group based out of Hyderabad, Biological E, who has been also making a lot of, who's been in the news very often because hundreds of millions of doses have been committed by, and I see Dr. Vikram there. Dr. Vikram, would you like to share the way you have strategized the growth of the vaccine candidate, your portfolio for COVID vaccines at Biological E? Because we see a lot of partnerships, collaborations, working with different agencies and institutes. So if you could share some of those with us.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Dr. Kavita, for giving us the opportunity. Biological E has a lot of experience working with some key vaccine platforms. One of them was a protein subunit platform. And so we decided at the beginning of our journey to focus on this because of our existing expertise as well as manufacturing infrastructure. And we collaborated with Baylor University, which had already started working on the receptor binding domain protein as an antigen. And we decided to start working with them. And then we developed this vaccine by developing not only the antigen, but also adjuvant with it. And now we are we just completed our phase 1/2 clinical trials with it. And we are waiting for the final immunogenicity readout from that. And we'll immediately start with our phase 3 trials, probably a month or so from now. So while we are doing that, we are also quickly scaling up this technology in terms of being ready to supply, as you mentioned, hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine. We have some dedicated manufacturing facilities that can produce both the antigen as well as the formulations. And as soon as this vaccine candidate is approved, we'll be able to supply this. We also are in a partnership with Johnson & Johnson for production of their vaccine as a manufacturing partner. And there also we are establishing infrastructure to supply more than 500 million doses of that vaccine annually. And that vaccine was just approved by US FDA over the weekend. And so with these two vaccine candidates, we'll be able to supply more than 1 billion doses of vaccine annually and contribute to the fight against this pandemic, not only in India, but also globally. And in both the cases, we are very confident of our infrastructure because we will be already supplying vaccines to that effect. And so we look forward to participating in this fight.
Excellent, Dr. Vikram. I think the good news with Johnson brought in was a single dose vaccine possibility. Yes. So what do you think, what do you foresee as timelines for that being available in the country for our population? Any back of the envelope calculations over there?
Yeah, we should probably another 4 months or so from now, we will be rolling out the vaccines from our facility, to supply to India as well as potentially other parts of the world as well.
And there might be a need of doing a bridging study, knowing our regulatory agencies, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Vikram. Dr. Vikram, because we see massive numbers. When you talk about billion numbers, it's a big contribution to the global kitty of making them available. Like we say, we've been talking about the equity and the distribution.
Yes.
Today, thank you, Dr. Vikram. I'll just move ahead as we have another young company with us today, and it's happy to see the vaccine company's numbers growing. And Dr. Kundu, we have him here. And it's also very interesting. We must note that practically every platform has been different. So that's the beauty of this whole vaccine fraternity in the country of, managing to practically to every platform which globally is being done. Dr. Kundu, would you like to talk about your vaccine candidate because it's totally different from what we've discussed till now? And with that, I invite you in, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kavita. It's such an honor and privilege for us to be sharing this panel with such esteemed panelists. And as you rightly said, we're a young company coming into this area. And if I may, just very quickly, I just want to have one what do you call this? Is it, can you see, is it being shared?
Give it some time. It usually takes few seconds.
Somebody help me with that?
Yes, yeah, Dr. Kundu, we can see your slide. Yes, that one slide we can see. If you can put it on slideshow, it will be wonderful.
Yeah. Is that visible now? Dr. Kavita, are we?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Please, Dr. Kundu.
Fantastic. So what we did was very interesting. This is the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which on the surface has the spike, which I think everyone knows, and the membrane and the envelope. So what we had a platform which we have been working on for about 12 years. It's an yeast or Baker's yeast, or as we know. And what we did is we had the platform, it's our own. We cloned and expressed these 3 proteins. And if I can sort of make everyone see, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen is a cryo-electron microscopy, to which we're very grateful to IIT Delhi for helping us do. You can see the similarity between what you see on the cartoon here on the left and the pictorial diagram which you see here. So we were able to sort of recreate the virus-like particle where we see this spike, the membrane and the envelope, gives us 3 antigens. What we had designed it for was to sort of, we had been working with other coronaviruses for some of our other collaborations, and we knew spike sort of mutates. So when we designed this in as early as February 2020, we had designed it so it would either protect for mutations because we have 3 antigens, or we would very easily be able to replace the spike. What we have then therefore done is we did this, then we went into animal studies, we've got some pretty good results. All in all, the structure of this is called like a virus-like particle, which means it has all the shape and size of what you would perhaps see as a virus, but it doesn't have the RNA or the genomic RNA, so it cannot replicate and is not infectious. We are trying multimodal routes to do it. Right now, our candidate is in GLP tox study because this is an absolute novel vaccine. There is no triple antigen virus-like particle in the world. We seem to be the first guys to do it. There was one company, but I don't know where they are now. And we are very grateful to the kind of advice and regulatory guidance we've got. And hopefully in a couple of months, we should be getting into clinical trials. So without much ado, thank you again very much. So what we are doing is we're using yeast. And as everyone knows, yeast grows very fast. So like we believe in a 30,000 liter vessel, we should be able to create about 20 million doses. Our production timeline is about 7 days. So we believe that as we look out for commercial manufacturers and alliances, this would be a phenomenal opportunity. And what we want it to become is a platform, which means that tomorrow, if we are faced, unfortunately, with some mutations that we can't do, we would be able to sort of look at it and challenge it. Thank you, Dr. Kavita. This is all I have, and I will try and stop the share.
Okay, thank Dr. Kundu. Before I let you off the lead, I mean, just a couple of quick ones. One is, why would you think the need for 3 antigen VLP, considering all the candidates have been focusing on our protection? We are gradually moving towards I wouldn't say correlate of protection, but the neutralizing antibodies or the titers as more predictive. Firstly, why the need of the 3 antigen VLP, and second, what do you see as the cost for such? Would it impact in any way?
No, thank you so much.
The yeast fermentation and others? Yeah, back to you.
Thank you so much. Excellent question. So this is what we get. Of course, spike is the primary protein that you need to target. Absolutely. There's no questions about it. What we were doing is like sort of buying an insurance policy is where you have M and E. We know E is also called the viroporin because E forms the pore protein. And therefore, a lot of the pharma companies are trying to target E as well. So we were thinking that if we have 3 antigens, when we know spike mutates under population pressure, would it be possible as a hypothesis to look at this? And we are seeing that in the animal studies, at least in the GLP tox, we get a phenomenal anti-E response. And we have seen both humoral as well as cellular responses, which last over 6 months. We've seen that at least in animals. Of course, everything has to be validated in humans. So I would rather tone down my sort of, wish, but I hope that we succeed, and I hope that this, proves itself. The other thing from a cost perspective, because it's Baker's Yeast, is very cost effective. So we would be able to be one of the perhaps most cost effective vaccines. We've done a sort of an assessment, but it's pretty cost effective because we are getting very high doses. We are getting about 120 milligrams per liter. And one of the things we think is spike, membrane, and envelope in the virus came together by selection by nature for millions or thousands of years. All we did is take them together, put it in an artificial system, and allow them to come together. That's what we did, in essence.
Interesting, a very interesting technology, I would say, a platform. And with the mutants arising in, I'm hoping platforms become more and more exciting to us as we go forward. We have about 10 minutes before Dr. Soumya joins in, and I certainly have, this is one of my most favorite subjects, and we could talk for hours and hours. We've always done that, but we'll just have to limit ourselves. So I'm really, despite as much I'm desiring to, I would stop here, and I will invite in Dr. Amulya Panda, Director NII. Dr. Panda, two quick ones for you. One is that we've been hearing about NII's early technology development for protein vaccine candidate. And I'll also leave the second question so that it's all yours, then the stage is all yours, is how do you foresee we can further strengthen this academia industry programs on infectious diseases? It's not something we can shy off. So we'll certainly like your ideas towards that. Over to you,
Okay.
Dr. Pandey.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita. I think regarding the NI vaccine, it's a protein-based vaccine, and probably we are few among in the world who has been making it in E. coli. We make it in E. coli, the RBD protein, like people have been doing, and everybody know E. coli is the cheapest thing. We make around 2 grams per liter, but what is important is we have refolded the protein and made it exactly like binding to the RBD receptor, and we started our immunization around June, and to our surprise, for last 8 months, we have got memory antibody response, which is neutralizing. So we are very hopeful. 2 doses of 10 microgram of E. coli protein, and E. coli make 10 tons. In 1 liter, we get 10,000 doses. So if things goes, it will be the cheapest vaccine. In fact, recently we have given the technology transfer because we are a academic institute. We cannot do certain things beyond on that. So we are at that. We have proved the proof of principle, and we have handed over the technology to industry to take for phase 1, phase 2 trial. That comes the next question, the interaction between academia industry. I think time has come. I am in academia, but more or less because of my background, I get involved with industry. I think we all academicians should understand our limitation. What we discover is a lead compound which nobody can know, but let's remember that lead compound, either a vaccine or a molecule, is only 10% of the total package. After that, there is manufacturing, there is scale-up, there is regulation, there is quality control, there is pharmacovigilance, which we are not at all aware of. We don't understand them. It's the industry which understands. So it is better, I believe, in future, any pandemic come, any challenge come, it's better if the academia and industry get together in the beginning so that we go hand in hand and get all the feedback and start doing. We must do what we are good at. Like in academics, we do wonderful research, we publish paper, we do innovation, we get patents and give it to industry. Let industry do things. I think this concept during this pandemic, it has taught us you should not do everything what you are supposed to do. You do what you are doing, but best leave the things to the industry. Let them do the quality control, manufacturing, regulatory, pharmacovigilance, clinical trial, which they are good at. I think that is the best way this pandemic has taught. I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Panda. We're really looking forward to the RBD. I mean, this is what you said as an E. coli protein. Certainly could be sort of a savior in terms of costs for many small countries and many countries, in fact. And also, I believe when you talked about collaboration, the other aspect is a very early collaboration is something we should really look at, even though we say, yes, the later parts of the downstream is what the industry should be doing totally, but perhaps a very early collaboration. So maybe, research programs prospectively planned is something we can always talk about later if we have time on that. While we have had the first few, the last 24, 30, 45, 40 minutes, we've been talking about, the vaccine platforms, manufacturers. We also have two very excellent members, speakers with us, both from the capacity which supports vaccine development. And much of it efforts have been going through DBT and if it's DBT institutes or DBT funded labs. And I would like to invite Dr. Guru Prasad first, who is based out of DHSTI, and understand from him what is it that this time vaccine and the research institutes or the academicians have done to support, not directly do, but certainly support the vaccine developers. Dr. Guru Prasad, if you could kindly unmute. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, and it's an honor to be sharing this this dais with this esteemed panelists. So when we talk about academia industry collaboration, I think COVID-19 has been an excellent example where academicians got to learn how to collaborate. I think Indian academia really is used to working in silos. And this was probably, at least in my living memory, this was the first time when we decided we will get out of comfort zones and try to do something meaningful. And I think as a pandemic response, academia has really risen up to the occasion and has delivered. And if you ask me, I think collaborations don't happen as a pandemic response. I think it has to be the norm. All of us really now understand that what we develop in the lab, just like what Dr. Panda was saying, may not really ever reach, the patient or really as a product unless we understand the whole process. So I think it is right time now to carefully plan at least research programs such that industrial input is there right from the beginning, and we understand the processes right from the beginning. It can be even an assay development, for example, or having a proper animal model, or even culturing viruses, sequencing viruses, helping platforms to really immediately adapt to different variants. So there's a lot of ways how academia can actually interact with industry and quickly transform our pandemic response and make it much more faster. So this response actually is something which needs to be enabled by funding agencies also, because if you think of sustaining this, all of us in the academia have different criteria for evaluation. So how does really the evaluation criteria change when we are really saying we need to work with industry? So how do you really, quantify this collaboration and this response is something we need to think about. Because when it comes to quantification, we always think of patents or publications or some kind of a product that probably would not really translate completely. So if you really think of developing an enabling atmosphere, we need to start from enabling the interaction and also really enabling the progress of this interaction to transforming lives. And that's what probably now funding agencies and institutes should be thinking of. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. A couple very valid points. A couple of more things. What is it that DHSTI did differently? I mean, what is it that was available in the environment which you mentioned?
Yeah, so DHSTI has been probably at the forefront of COVID-19 response amongst DBT institutes. So we now have established a bioassay laboratory, which is funded by DBT and INSEPI mission. Now we have an accredited lab, which supports, it started off as a GLP facility for vaccine development, and right in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, we just converted ourselves into a testing lab. And during this period, we have tested now close to 80,000 samples, and also have established assays for vaccine development. So almost all the vaccine developers of India have actually come to DHSTI for immunogenicity studies, for animal challenge studies, and we are continuing to support some of the vaccine development which is happening in India. by providing them services for virus neutralization and also services for immunogenicity. In addition, our collaboration with CEPI, which is Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, actually THSTI's BioSA lab became one of the 7 labs in the world, which now offers validated assay services for COVID-19 vaccine development. And I think this is a proud moment for both THSTI, DBT and India, that we now have standards of assays which is acceptable across the world. And this was a learning experience for us because we never really valued quality and valued the rigor of assays. Now I think we understand what is it that the industry needs, what is it that the regulators need, and we are trying to really reach a stage where this can be scalable and this can be really adaptable to any pandemic. And the biorepository we have now is one of the largest biorepositories in India. And this biorepository has supported a number of diagnostic kit development by providing validated panels. And we also now have even large companies which are actually tying up with us to use the biorepository for even new product development. So this way we have the BioSA lab, we have biorepository and the COVID-19 consortium, which is again a large cohort looking into even basic science and translational research.
Excellent, Dr. Guru Prasad. Certainly, I hope this collaboration continues and the understanding of the need of the industry, the timelines or the quality, the robustness, all that is, we don't need a pandemic for the relationship to continue, and it's like a new norm which we have established. Similar, on a very similar platform, we also have another lab which is exactly in the heart of the hub of the city of Serum Institute, Pune, the Isha lab, and we have Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya would certainly, I'm sure the vaccine manufacturers are aware of the clinical immunogenicity services of B cell, T cell being provided by Isha. Would certainly like to know how Isha is thinking of making these capacity available with, as and when we are seeing mutants available. What is the role you think you can play there so that our vaccine manufacturers get access to some of these? They don't every time don't need to build a capacity, which Dr. Krishna Mohan was also mentioning in-house. Because there are vaccine manufacturers, if they spend more their time doing manufacturing, and some of the capacities is readily available to them. Dr. Vidya, yeah, you will need to unmute, please. The panel below, exactly below.
Sorry. Yes, got it. Sorry. Thank you. Actually, before that, I just want 2 minutes. I want to say something.
Please, over to you.
Because I have been a researcher, and during my life, I have developed several vaccines. Hepatitis E plus B, Chandipura whole virus inactivated, Chandipura G protein, then chikungunya, E2 truncated chikungunya whole virus based vaccine, H5N1, H1N1, so many different vaccines I have really developed. But I always thought that for a researcher, it is just publish the paper and that is the end of it. I never ever, got the chance that whatever thing has been developed in the lab will go to the actually to the people. But this COVID-19, I can see that it is very different situation, and I really I'm very, very happy that efforts of scientists are being translated into actually vaccine manufacturing and going to people. This is one thing I just wanted to say. Now, as far as Isha is concerned, we are definitely helping many of the panelists who are here. Actually, we have been helping them also with testing using PRNT or whatever assays they want. We are doing that. Now, as far as the other strains are concerned, like for example, UK strain, Brazilian strain, or the South African strain. So we are in fact we are trying to get these strains from different sources, so that we have a test ready to, so that whenever these people come to us, we have test against all these 3 different variants. And for this, actually DBT and BIRAC has been helping us to get these strains from different sources, so that we will have the test ready for all the variants.
Okay, Dr. Vidya, that's really good to hear. And I'm really happy to announce that we are also joined by Dr. Somya. Ma'am, if we could request you for your video, please too. I'm certain Dr. Somya doesn't need any introduction to this esteemed group here. And Ma'am, we're here for you. We have all our vaccine manufacturers who have already started providing globally, who are developing for nation. Those who should be joining this as a supplier very soon, both indigenous, collaborative, through our own research labs coming out. So we really have a pack full of all possible cards in the deck. So Dr. Somya, if we could have you on the screen, both your audio and video, it would be, and if I could invite you for your talk. I do see you, and it's wonderful seeing you, ma'am, after a long time directly on the same screen. An honor to share a screen with you. So over to you, Dr. Somya, please. We have you, I'm sure you can see all the Dr. Jadhav, Dr. Krishna Mohan, biologically, our institutes, DBT institutes, and our team members here.
Yes, thank you very much, Kavita, and thank you, Shirshendu and Dr. Renu for having invited me. I hope you can hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, clear.
Yeah. So sorry that I couldn't join the earlier part of the session, so I haven't heard the discussion. I was on another call, just finished. But I just wanted to share a few thoughts with you all. Currently, I think if you look at the global epidemiology of COVID, we're at a very, I would say, rather critical junction again, because we had seen over the New Year, December, January, cases had gone up dramatically, particularly in Europe and North America and Latin America. And then for the last 4 to 5 weeks, we had been seeing a decline in weekly cases as well as deaths. And then last week was the first week when the decline stopped. In fact, the increase started again. And Southeast Asia region is one of the regions to show an increase in cases. And mainly this is driven by India, Indonesia, and Nepal. So it's the same thing is also happening in Europe. Probably we think it's the B117 variant that actually has taken over in most of Europe now as a predominant strain. And then we also see the same thing happening in Latin America, where there's a third wave, and there's a lot of fear here that there may be a fourth wave as well coming through. So there are many uncertainties just now, and some of these include, of course, the impact of the variants. The second one, I think, is the people's fatigue and wanting to go back and behave normally. And the third one is that governments having to balance the economy versus the public health measures and wanting to open up the economy, open up transport, open up all the other things which facilitate people getting together. And there's also a sense in some countries of security because vaccination campaigns have started, but of course vaccines have only reached minority of the people globally, except for 1 or 2 countries where they're approaching sort of 30 to 40% of the adult population being covered. All the other countries are just barely at a fraction of a percentage, if at all they've started. Large number of countries have not started even. So I think that we have to be very careful right now in the messaging as well. While there is optimism, of course, because of the new tools we have, but there's also a fact that it's going to take quite some time for us to really get the upper hand once and for all. In terms of, I think, India and its response, no doubt that in terms of the scientific and technological innovations and contributions, it's been really amazing. It's been a very positive story, I think, whether you take diagnostics or you take vaccines. I think the industry particularly has really outshone itself, I would say, really stepped up and stepped in to fill all the gaps that existed. And very early on, I think the government departments also and ministries also stepped up to play that role of supporting and facilitating and coordinating the development of, particularly the development of new tools. So I want to congratulate everyone, and particularly many people on this panel who've all played a very major role, I think, in getting to where you have actually in India so many products already developed and in development as well, still a lot, which is happening. I just wanted to share a few things about the system itself and how the system can be further strengthened and improved for the future, responding to this pandemic, but future pandemics, but also other public health diseases which are of importance in India, because I think the kind of well-coordinated response that we've seen to COVID can be applied to other diseases, for example, tuberculosis or malaria, which actually take a much higher toll if you see in terms of mortality. Certainly the death toll due to TB is several-fold higher than the death due to, at least the documented deaths due to COVID. And that is a yearly phenomenon. It happens year after year after year. So we're actually millions of people dying of TB without even anyone realizing that it's happening. So, and that's globally, but then of course India is one of the high burden countries, and we do have a commitment to eliminate TB. So I keep thinking of the lessons that we've learned during the COVID pandemic and how those could be applied to other diseases. And for that, I think we need a few things. We need, first of all, of course, the high level commitment and the funding allocation and the resources. So that's definitely something that will need to be done. But then you really need a coordination between the public and the private sectors, because there are certain things individual companies and individual institutes can do, but there are certain things which cannot be done like that, which do need a national coordinated approach. And these are things like harmonizing, the assays that one would be using to test vaccines or drugs, to harmonize and have a system of animal models, for example, to have a particular model that's laid out as being the standard for use. Nomenclature and definitions are important, whether it's to do with how you label the variant strains, because I've seen, reports from different countries which just describe mutations and variants. So now the WHO has actually come out with a definition of what is a variant of interest and what is a variant of concern, and what are the assays and tests that would need to be done in order to take a variant of interest and then actually label it as a variant of concern. And that will be, applied globally so that everybody is talking about the same thing. When you talk about a variant of concern, it means that it has demonstrated that it has either increased transmissibility, it has an impact on clinical presentation, or it has an impact on vaccine effectiveness of vaccines because it's able to overcome the antibody response. So those assays would need to be done in a standardized way in order to define that variant of concern. So again, you need global definitions, but you also need a national harmonization of some of these things. You need sera panels of sera which can be used as benchmarks. And these sera, of course, are from all the different trials that are being done. But if there is a national coordination of that and one biobank, that would be very helpful. Similarly, for studies of antibodies and for monoclonal antibody development, you would need to harvest the antibodies from a large number of individuals in order to, say, look for broadly neutralizing antibodies. It was done for HIV in the past. It could be done again for viruses. In fact, if you can find broadly neutralizing antibodies against many different viruses, that would be a very huge advance in the field. But to do that, you need not only the blood samples, but you need, obviously, it has to come from a very well characterized group of individuals. So you need all the metadata, the clinical data, the laboratory data, the epidemiological data to back it. Similarly, for genomic analysis, it can only be done when you have one good database in which you have the genomics of the virus, as well as all the other data that go with the clinical and epidemiological presentation. For human genome studies, you need even more of a representative database. Otherwise, these studies, these associations will not be statistically significant. So for all of these, it needs the different agencies to come together and agree on a system which the private sector then collaborates with, agrees to work with. Then you have the regulatory system, which is very important. And I think our regulators have really improved a lot over the last few years in the way in which both for COVID, the criteria were laid out in advance as to how regulators would be looking at it so that the companies doing the clinical trials know exactly what the benchmarks are. And again, WHO did that very early on. We put out target product profiles. We then put out the criteria for emergency use listing so that it's very clear as to what are the benchmarks against which a particular vaccine or a therapeutic will be judged. So it's important to articulate that in advance, but then you also need a transparency of decision making. That actually builds a trust in the system. And I really appreciate the way in which the FDA conducts a very open, it's open to the public, the discussions of their expert groups. Anybody can listen in. They have an open debate and a discussion around the data from a particular product. And then they make the recommendation to the FDA. So everybody understands the basis on which that recommendation has been made. And the FDA, of course, then goes and makes a decision, but it usually follows the advice of the expert advisory group. So I think that's a very good model, actually, because it really builds a public trust and confidence in the system. And as India becomes more and more of a innovative R&D company, we need really for the regulatory system to keep up and to keep in step so that the products are recognized globally as, having gone through the most stringent regulatory approval. And as you know, the WHO has a system for benchmarking national regulatory authorities. This is a system which is trying to get over the old system where there were a few authorities in the world that were considered as stringent and everyone else was not. But here we are moving towards a maturity model where you start off with a regulatory system which may be very rudimentary or just beginning. And then there are levels of 4 levels of maturity, and there are criteria and checklists for each of those. And then finally you reach the most mature level of being a regulatory authority, which means that anything that comes from that system will be accepted by their peers and by other countries. So I think that is something that that India is trying to move up in that ladder, and I think we're at the second, if I'm not mistaken, still not at the highest level, but approaching that. And so we need to see where the gaps are and how to fill them. But I think transparency and is one of them. And then I think the ethics of undertaking various types of studies is very important. And that's again a centralized function. It should not be a function of each company or each trial, but rather a national advisory group like the Central Ethics Committee of the ICMR, which makes recommendations and guidelines on how to do the trials. Because as the situation keeps changing, the type of trials that can be done will also change. Once you have vaccines available to the general public, it's going to be very difficult to do placebo-controlled randomized clinical trials. And we know that there are several vaccine candidates which are still in development, right? Which have not yet entered the phase 3 clinical trials. At the same time, they cannot be skipped either, because at this point of time, we do not have the correlates of protection that have been identified by which a developer could only do those immunogenicity studies. That we have not reached that point for COVID-19. So we have to do the phase 3 trials for efficacy and safety, but they would have to be different design. If the ethics committee cannot approve a placebo-controlled trial, or if participants are not willing, then there are other designs which will need to be used, like non-inferiority designs, like head-to-head. You could have 4 or 5 different vaccines in one trial against a common standard. So I think there needs to be some ethics discussion and advice given to what is ethical. And of course, once the studies are being done, also the ethics standards will need to be monitored and made sure that they're being upheld. Similarly, I think after the vaccine introduction, which is the stage in which India is and many other countries are, there is a huge amount of scope to really study the effectiveness and the impact of these vaccines, because there are so many questions that are still not very clear. Impact on infectiousness, the duration of protection, the impact on, of course, severe disease and illness and hospitalization, the effectiveness in different subpopulation groups, people with chronic diseases, younger people versus older people, pregnant women, children. So lots of questions need to be answered still, and those studies also need to be thought through and moved along. And again, all of this will benefit from some coordinated approach. There's digital technology, of course. We know about the apps which have been developed and which have been successfully deployed. And these can be very usefully used also now for safety monitoring, for effectiveness monitoring, and so on. But again, you need it to be coordinated, because I think it will be very important to look at breakthrough cases which are occurring now post-vaccination, ensuring that we can collect the sample so that you can do genomic analysis to see whether the breakthroughs are related in any way to any of the variants that could be present. And then finally, I think 2 more things I just want to say. One is about on the therapeutic side. I mean, I know we talk a lot about vaccines, but there is a need also to look at a system of prioritization of products from upstream, screening of libraries, identifying the leads, taking them through the different preclinical stages, to having some committee that looks at which products move through one step to the next, phase 1, phase 2, and then finally into phase 3, could be a good model of discovery and for therapeutics. Again, not just for COVID, I'm just talking about the system which could be put in place for priority diseases. And this again would require an interagency coordinated approach. But I think like the CSIR has a lot of strengths in this area, the DBT may have some strengths, and obviously the ICMR would have strengths in actually doing the clinical studies, but also providing the epidemiological and clinical information that you need in order to prioritize. So again, an end-to-end approach would be very helpful. First, define the problem, what's the priority, what is the gap you're trying to address, who's going to do which element along that value chain, and then ultimately, what is your outcome that you want to see. And then I think about the last point I'd like to make is really around communication, science communication. I think we've all seen that this has been really a very important need during this time, because people really want information, they want timely information, they want credible information, they want it from trusted sources. And so it's equally important, you know, when we do the science, to be able to communicate it clearly to people so that they understand that knowledge is something that's constantly evolving. It's not static. And if you know one thing today, it could change and it could be something new tomorrow. And so you have to revise your position accordingly. You revise your actions and your response based on that evolving knowledge. It's not that you were wrong yesterday and that you're right today. It's just that you are responding to the advancing knowledge. And that's something that everybody may not understand. So science communication, making sure people have credible information, fighting the infodemic, ensuring that false information is not propagated, speaking up for the right methodology always and the scientific approach when dealing with anything. Again, it goes way beyond COVID. But I think we've learned lessons in COVID that can be used to apply to others. So I would maybe stop my comments at this point, and if there are any issues that anyone wants to raise or clarifications or questions, it's up to you, Kavita. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soumya. Firstly, totally reminding us for a couple of things, that don't let the fatigue set in and don't let complacency also affect in, because we are still in that active phase of the pandemic ongoing. And very important points you made on how India can, extrapolate the learnings of this COVID, which has been phenomenal in terms of coordination of whether agencies or ministries or public-private or between the industry academia. How do we learn and take lessons from them and handle many of our infectious diseases, which are a much higher burden to the country? I would, so of course, Dr. Soumya, you made a number of points, but at least I know we are ending this, we are coming to a close of the session also. Any final words because we have a lot of vaccine manufacturers here and developers. Would you have any special message for them from the global stage or from WHO's perspective? Certainly, I would like to put out to you.
Yes, thank you, Kavita. I think my message would be that, India has shown its capacity to really be both a manufacturer at scale of technologies that have been developed elsewhere, but also of being an innovative product development capacity. It has shown its capacity to do both of these things. And I think the COVAX facility in particular is really going to be looking to India really to supply a large part of the world's needs for vaccines going forward. So I think there's an opportunity here to look at within the companies in India, existing vaccine manufacturers, but also not those who are not traditionally in vaccine manufacturing, but may have strengths in being able to do fill and finish, for example, in having the capacity, to make syringes and needles and so on, to really make sure that everything that you need, you have to look at the totality of the needs when you're launching a vaccination program, and to make sure that we're using all the capacities and strengths that we may have across the private sector. As I said, looking at the non-traditional vaccine manufacturers to see where they could step in. So that's one. The second is on global collaborations and trying to get, what we are trying to do now really is to see if we can get some technology transfer hubs set up, because as we've seen now, the new platform technologies have proven to be quite successful in very rapidly creating vaccines and very successful vaccines. For monoclonal antibodies, again, there is a huge gap between what the global need is and what the current supply is able to develop. Of course, they've run into problems with monoclonals because of the variants emerging, but let us say that that is able to be overcome, and you might have maybe polyclonal antibodies that become the solution, or a mixture of monoclonals or whatever, but that capacity for production at scale is not there to meet the global demand. And I think this is where we need to start looking at, is there a possibility for using mRNA technology to develop monoclonal antibodies, for example? What partnerships can be established globally in order to strengthen those capacities in India? Because in the future, what one would like to see is that if there is a pandemic, again, that you're able to actually create a vaccine within 100 days. I mean, that's the sort of goal that we are setting, which is possible with the platform technologies, that you can create a vaccine candidate very, very quickly based on the genetic sequence and take it into trials. So for that, you need all of this to be set up in advance. Production capacity, which can be quickly moved to creating pandemic vaccines. But at the time when there is no pandemic, it could be used to develop vaccines for our other public health, the needs that we have in any case. So I think it's a good moment to look internally and do a mapping of what capacities we have plenty of and what there may be gaps, where there may be gaps, and to really target those and build that. And again, I would say that in the, I think preclinical and the animal models area in the phase 1, I think that there is still gaps which could be filled, where the public sector also chips in and helps to develop those core facilities so that all of the private sector can actually benefit from that. And that's the kind of thing which can really give you a head start, I think, in product development.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Somya. I think yes, some of it we saw very minimal. We did see some DBT and ICMR institutes coming forward and playing that role of filling the public gaps of core facilities so that our vaccine manufacturers do get access to that capacity. I think we should end with a note of what you finally said, 100-day vaccine available, which I believe even CEPI started and WHO and CEPI are together supporting. And before I close, just 1 minute, Dr. Jadhav and Dr. Krishna Mohan, considering you have such huge capacities, your take on this 100 days, India should be prepared. Your final sentence before we thank the organizers for giving us this platform.
Thank you very much. Of course, it is possible, but at the same time, we will require all the support from the regulators, all the support from department like biotechnology, ICMR, to import the strains and get the analytical methods established. But this will be possible only for a product or a vaccine for which already the technology has been developed and found to be safe and effective. If it is totally new technology and new product and new vaccine, then achieving this goal in 100 days may not be a reality. That is my personal take on
this. I think that's a very valid point. Of course, this is precisely the reason why we thought the first vaccine candidate we will work on, we chose a whole virion inactivated. And in fact, I think we almost did it in 100 days. The whole virion went into a clinical trial within 100 days. We have done that. And we've done it at a scale fortunately, we were working on constructing a BSL-3 facility, which came in very handy. All we had to do is to get started with the facility. The struggle was more on how to get it into bioreactors and scale it up. But otherwise, if you choose a conventional platform, and we have not taken any shortcuts either in the tox work or in the animal potency studies. Unfortunately, we had the ICMR partnership where we could do the challenge studies in parallel. So by 100 days, we had enough data to show to the world that we have a good working vaccine candidate. So, but it may not be the case if you work on an mRNA vaccine, for instance. But as Dr. Jadhav mentioned, I think the US FDA was a little more liberal when it came to Moderna, and I don't want to specifically, I'm sorry I mentioned the company name, but certainly they were a lot more liberal in terms of insisting on all the tox studies or the potency studies. They could manage to get quite fast. If you take the other vaccine from Oxford, certainly again, they were given a waiver based on the fact that it was a proven platform, not for COVID, but for Ebola and other candidates. So there is there are some lessons here for us to learn what is the risk benefit in terms of speeding up. And personally, we think that there was some price we paid being a little conservative. I mean, I would say that, while not getting into too much of a detail on these points in this debate.
Sure, Dr. Krishnamohan. I mean, I really wish we had another half an hour, but I know we're running behind schedule. We'll maybe end at this note, leaving lots and lots of messages for the organizer, DBT. And of course, we know that DBT will prepare a note and many important points made by the manufacturers, by Dr. Somya, by the industry, by the young industry of a country as it's evolving. We'd like to thank organizers, Dr. Shishendu, Dr. Madhvi, Dr. Jyoti, to give us this wonderful platform on the first day of Global Bio India. And we wish DVT and BIRAC all the best. And with that, I would like to thank each member, each esteemed member who I know is busy, as despite that has spared their time from their schedules. So thank you all very much. And good
Thank
day.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Samya.
Bye.
Good night.